TADA! And welcome to Josef's Model Railway and Toy Room. Thank you so much, as always, for joining me. Just a little bit of housekeeping. You don't need to like, follow, or subscribe to any of the videos I put out there. I just put them out there and have a holly jolly great time doing so. Now, today's video, after so many epic ones, yes, we finally have a quick one. So let's get stuck into it. Here's a fun little fact that many of you probably have never picked up on if we go all the way back to the start of the videos, and we can even go back a further 10 years from there. But today's episode, we're going to be talking about the wonderful world that is bioluminescence. In its most simplest form, we're talking about things that can glow in the dark, just like my fantastic Hornby sphere. In fact, so much so, let us just switch the light off and you will see it glows in the dark. If you look carefully, you will also notice my name glowing on my shirt. So much so, on the back of my shirt. That's nothing new, that's always been there. I just don't shoot videos in the dark. Let there be light. Lovely. So, glowing in the dark, fascinating stuff. And of course, we achieve a lot of this using the UV light of which you saw in the opening sequence. So just a quick bit of history regarding that. It's nice that it's all around us, and I suppose my more formal introduction to this happened to be in one of my favorite TV shows, which is Bob's Burgers. I don't know why, I just love this show. But there was an actual episode that completely featured on the discovery of a key character called Gene, who discovers this blob, which turns out to be this plankton, which is bioluminescence and will react accordingly to a percussive sound or it being interacted with, i.e. it touches the shore and it creates this reaction where it glows. Now, having a coastal scene, I thought that could be a really good idea, but I wasn't exactly sure how on earth we could do it until, as you saw in the previous video on the mountain biking, where we needed to create that puddle using that UV resin where we could put it out and then spread it out, and then taking a trusty UV washlight, of which we have here, which we can turn on and get that beautiful purple effect. And as you can see immediately here, if I dim some of the lights out, you'll see what we're talking about. Now, it's wonderful stuff. And of course, once we had turned on that UV light, it caused that resin to set. And isn't it wonderful that Green Stuff World, which is what we have used, as seen in this picture, also happens to manufacture a few other different types of resin as well. So I did some hunting, and of all the model railway suppliers in Australia that I decided to go with on this particular project, it wasn't Orient Express, it wasn't MK Railways, it wasn't Australian Modeler, it wasn't Hobbytech, Frontline, Metro, or all those other wonderful names that we have. It of course went to the Melbourne hobby supply shop, Hearns. Now, if you're wondering why I'm saying Hearns when the name is just Hearns, because Hearns sounds much more like it belongs on my channel. So when I see things, I put names to it. We're going to have an episode on some of the naming conventions of key things on the layout. As a result though, here are the products. So exactly as we saw with the resin, they also make them glow in the dark color. Now obviously here we have orange, we have blue, and we have that almost like a toxic yellow, so to speak. So here are our products here. So let's dive on in and see what we can come up with using these products, and if we can try and add a smidge of bioluminescence to the coastal scene. So as you can see, what I basically did here was I took a little drop of each one of these different colors onto a sheet of baking paper, and just using a toothpick, I spreaded them around just to see how they work. Time I had to manipulate them just using a toothpick was all I really needed. Then we head over to the actual coastal scene. Now we're going to put it together. As you can see, I did originally want to decant it out like I had practiced, and I thought, you know what, I think with the blue, and remember, this comes out similar to a tube of toothpaste, however, it is a bit harder to squeeze that little bottle. So you're not really going to make a huge mistake per se. So as you can see, I just took the bottle and squeezed it on. And the approach here is once I'd got it into the key areas I wanted, while I'd like to be using a toothpick, I couldn't quite get it into the angle. So I did just take a sort of straight edge brush and I sort of brushed it pulling towards the shoreline where I needed it to be to sort of thin out. Just in key areas where that water would typically break. Obviously just around the boat ramp area and or just where we've got that shipwrecked little dinghy. And of course, the wake from where the boat's just starting to come in at the moment. Often these bioluminescence areas are in blobs or sections. So the fact there's a little break in the wake behind the boat actually is a little more realistic. Or did I just forget to put it in? Once it's done, then we're going to take a little bit of the orange and the yellow/green. I did decant that onto some baking sheet that you can't quite see in the picture. And I took a handful of toothpicks, 3 or 4 here, clumped them together and just kept dipping the tips into the paint and then just tap, tap, tap around the shallow a bit where it's going to be. As a result, just came back with the brush again and lightly manipulated it and massaged it into the key areas where it needed to be. This was starting to get the appearance I wanted, but remember, for the most part, the water ripples we've laid down are in that sort of clear to a blue color. Now I thought I might just go back along, one final tooth polish, toothpaste, whatever you prefer to call it, stripe running across where the actual roll of the wave would be, the peak, so to speak. Once I put it out, it looks quite good, but looks like it does just come straight out of the bottle and or your tooth polish tube. So that's where I just took the toothpick again and just gently teased it up. So it's just not quite as perfect, sort of as the wind might be catching it, as the wave's about to break or what have you. Remember, these aren't really big waves. They're just sort of the tide gently lapping onto the shore. Once we've got them basically where we need them, I flicked on a regular light just to give them a little bit of a charge and then turn the lights off because this stuff does just glow. It's not going to set unless it's a UV light. But from what I can see, this isn't looking all that bad for what I was trying to do. As a result, once I was happy with the way it was, a quick tweak here and there, I take the UV light and now it's time to blast over it. Again, probably just leaving the UV light on there for about 5 seconds. Once completed, we take it off, charge it up again with the light and turn off the lights. Things start to look quite good. And at this point now, the finger comes down to make sure it has set. And yes, they're nice and stiff and everything is in place. The hardest part of the video was, of course, making sure I could get a really good shot to demonstrate, because once you dim the lights down, and I don't necessarily mean to plunge the room into complete darkness, but just dim them down enough that if you're running the night scene with the lights on, where we obviously have our navigation beacons flashing in the background, which still need to be dimmed down a little more, but we'll get to that later. The locomotives can still be seen running around with their running lights, not that we're seeing here at the moment, but that's kind of what I'm testing here, is to make sure you can still see the effect when we try and recreate a dusk or dawn scene and still see what's going on around the layout. And this really does create the exact image I am after. I couldn't be happier. So look, while these might not be the most perfect shots, girls and boys, ladies and gentlemen, please indulge now in the end result of what we've created with spending 10 minutes creating some bioluminescence on the model railway coastal scene. Well, girls and boys, ladies and gentlemen, here we are with the finished scene, albeit with the lights on. However, through the power of Josef's Model Railway and YouTube channel, we can plunge ourselves into a little bit of darkness. A little bit of magic to be had. And as we apply the lighting back up now, the scene looks absolutely fine. There is no discoloration. There is no blues, yellows, or oranges. This really did turn out quite well. And I encourage everyone to give this a shot, or if there's somewhere you could add a little bit of this magic, this stuff is worth checking out. So as you can see, really all we've done is taken the existing ripples, and again, you can't really see any color variation in that water whatsoever. Really all we were doing is just building upon the existing waves that we had. And I think the product really does do quite a good job. I could have done a little bit better down here, but I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. I really am quite happy with this overall scene, especially when it turns into dusk at night. Well, here we are. What's for the future for this scene? Well, actually quite a bit more we still need to get to on here. And one thing I've never actually owned as yet are coaches that have the LED lights in them. That's starting to become a bit of a standard with a lot of the new stuff at the moment. And I think that's really where the scene's going to open up more. I've still got to do a little bit of additional lighting that's going to happen here. So the coastal scene is far from finished. But this video is great news for you because it is finished. So girls and boys, ladies and gentlemen, as always, thank you so much for joining me. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Please do stay safe. Toodles!